A mysterious geomagnetic storm has crashed your plane and left you stranded on a remote Canadian island. And you are the last one alive. That's the Long Dark. And this is how I survived my first 25 days. I woke up at Hushed River Valley, but I didn't stay long. I immediately went into a cave, hoping it would be a bit warmer, but it was just darker. I even had to waste a precious matchstick just to get across. But I eventually made it to Mountain Town. I was feeling a bit vulnerable, so I grabbed a rock. Not very threatening, I know, but better than nothing, I guess. I was proven right, because there was a wolf right there. And I didn't want to panic, but there was another just over the road. To be completely honest, this place was packed with wolves. So even though I was freezing to death, I had to take a detour. Turns out the detour was pointless, because I got spotted anyway. I thought that this is my end. But that rock somehow saved me. The wolf got scared, just for a few seconds, but it was enough for me to get away to a nearby car. And I found a knife inside.
Use this.
Jackpot. And some warm clothes would not hurt either. After a minute, I left the car and slowly snuck away. Following the road seemed like a reasonable idea. It would eventually lead me to a bridge full of abandoned cars. In the first one, I found a ski jacket, which was exactly what I needed. On the other side of the bridge, I saw a bear though, and I began risking frostbite, but I would rather risk that than a bear. Luckily, there was a conveniently placed tree bridge. I passed the bear's den, I didn't see him anywhere, and just legged it out of there. I began risking more frostbite. Great. I managed to stun a rabbit, but I don't know what happened, man, I don't know. Then I stepped into another dark cave. It took me a few minutes until I saw the light again. I was still in Mountain Town. To my surprise, I found a hatch in the middle of nowhere. It led to a small bunker, which was completely abandoned, except for a book and a little snack. It wasn't even warm enough to take a little nap. When I left, I reached a pond area full of rabbits. And I managed to stun one again. I'm so sorry, little one. I then ran along the hiking trail, only stopping for a few rose hips, until I reached a radio tower. And I don't know, but I kinda like radio towers. They just stand in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, this one was broken, but the view was worth it. Well, now there was just only one place for me to go. I sprinted down, and I entered the town of Milton. The houses were completely empty, but at least I didn't have to worry about the cold anymore. In order to survive, I would need anything I could get my hands on.
I can make something with this.
So I became a little loot goblin. I would take food, supplies, and even the toilet water. I even found a sewing kit and new socks.
This'll come in handy.
I then went to check out the giant house. It was not bad at all. It was spacious. I found a new shirt, cooking pot. It had a nice kitchen with a stove and more pots.
Could end up being useful.
Even a can opener. And a can that I could use my can opener to open.
Could end up being useful.
And more cooking supplies that would be really useful. And if it wasn't enough, I found this stress pistol.
This'll be useful.
And even a little bonus, a recipe for Lily's pancakes. Even a new pair of thermal underwear.
Use this.
Bonus number 2, an expensive instant camera
What
film.
have we here?
Then I went to check out the Milton Credit Union. Inside was a can of coffee.
That'll come in handy.
Coffee is always good, you know. I've also found a dead body. I've taken their matches, since they probably don't need them anymore, and I left them in peace. Better shoes.
Hope nobody needs this anymore.
And hey, I
This'll
found
come
some
in handy.
cash, which I could burn. I also managed to crack open a safe, somehow.
Never would have thought to look here.
Someone must have stashed their favorite thermal flask. Sorry about that. After returning to my temporary base, I have attempted to skin the rabbit I caught the best way I could. Then I've harvested the clothes I wouldn't need, repaired the new ones, and yeah, I was pretty stocked up. I've then started the fire. I threw in some branches as fuel and set up my cooking operation. I know it's probably not calories efficient, but I made some rabbit stew for dinner. Kept the fire going,
I'm so tired.
and it was dinner time. Then, as a last thing, I just melted some snow, and good night. First morning as a survivalist. The water was ready, and I wanted to check out the rest of the town today. I found a flower in a
Could end up
shed,
being useful.
nothing extra really, and then a mysterious memento hint. Located near a St. Christopher's church. Well, maybe I'll check it out. In the house next door, I looted some potatoes and more food, new clothing,
What have we here?
and
That'll come in
overall just useful stuff. Except, I don't know what was this rancid rabbit doing in the shower. Well, they had a fresh one in the freezer, so I will not question anything. A warm sweater and some medicine,
Could end
so
up being
pretty
useful.
good, pretty good.
Starting to
I
weigh
even
me
wanted to
down.
take the scar battery, but yeah, it was just not happening. I headed a bit more outside of the town and went to the house on the hill, which I would end up calling the scrap house because of all the scrap metal.
I think I can use this.
And well,
Thank goodness.
an actual revolver. And I had some ammo for it, so the wolves are no longer a problem. I hope. I also found a sewing primer, a book about sewing, and sewing is very important to know. So after a little snack, I went straight to reading. I wasn't planning on finishing it, but it kinda grabbed me and I just read it all. And this kinda spooked me. Next direction, back to Milton. I ended up crashing at the nearest house with
Use
antiseptic,
this.
cup of herbal tea, more potatoes, scarf,
That'll come in handy.
a cozy living room, new hoodie,
Could end up being
which I repaired with my newly found
Need to rest
skills.
soon.
I lit up the fireplace, started preparing dinner, and after eating, it was time to sleep. In the morning, the potatoes were still warm, so I ate some and went to this house in the corner. Most notable finds were a hacksaw, an emergency stim, painkillers, and decently
Think I
warm
can use
cargo
this.
pants. Last building to check out was Milton Post Office. I couldn't find much inside except these almost brand new ski gloves, and look at me go with my new red gloves. Anyway, I headed outside the town across the bridge until I reached a farm. I had my first encounter with a wolf, but I was not scared anymore. I actually landed a shot. I discovered Paradise Meadows Farm. Inside a truck, I surprisingly found an aviator cap. Heck yeah, dude. The front door was locked, which kinda sucked. Oh no, another wolf. This time I was a little scared, so I ended up just firing a warning shot. It did the trick. I then found a new hacksaw and a hatchet. Let's go. And also its unfortunate owner. Sorry, he had the key, so I took it and went inside. Someone really took care of their shoes. I then once again set up my cooking operation on the big stove, and I had so much food I decided to drop some and make this house my little stash, just in case I need to come back and get it. And I did the same with my spare tools. And yes, I found a flashlight, but I never used it, so I didn't really mention it.
Nobody needs this anymore.
And would you believe it? More thermal underwear, and right next to it, long johns. Even better. I then spent a lot of time just redecorating the whole house to my liking, for no particular reason. After the renovations, I actually did some real work again. When I finished repairing and harvesting my clothes, I got back to cooking. And after a long day, finally, some much needed sleep. Day 3 have started with me starting a map, and also started a fire on my first try. Then I turned some snow into water, and after breakfast I cooked enough coffee to fill my thermal flask. I just couldn't resist. I decided to leave the flare gun in front of the house since I haven't really needed it, and went on a little expedition around the farmhouse. I've taken some saplings because I might need them in the future. I then remembered I still have that cache that I need to search for. I began walking in the direction I thought the church was going to be. Through the plains and forest. The weather was really cold actually, so I was relieved when I finally saw it. The inside was quite beautiful and melancholic at the same time. Found some ammunition, which was dope. I desperately needed to warm up, so I started a fire. Yes, in the middle of the church, I know. When I was warm enough, I decided to follow the road. I didn't even realize I forgot about the cache. Look what I found. An abandoned logging trailer. Inside, there were some mittens, tin of sardines, and really ragged cargo pants laying around. I took it all. I assumed I would go back to that bridge I visited on my first day, so I returned. I even checked out the local waterfall. Quite beautiful if you ask me. And I've had another encounter with a wolf, but I've handled it like an expert. On my way back, I wanted to stop by the scrap house to collect all the scrap metal that was laying around in there. And why? Well, you'll see in just a minute. The last place in Milton I haven't visited yet was the local gas station. I went there, but sadly there was no way for me to get inside. In the woodlot, I've been ambushed by a wolf. I panicked a little, but no worries. Finally, I was back at the farmhouse. I was searching for one more scrap metal, and I'm sorry, little toaster, my food collection have grown even more. And why did I need so much scrap metal? Well, to make these improvised crampons. I also spent the rest of the day making them. I then repaired these cargo pants I found, made fire again, cooked some tea, and pork and beans for dinner. Not bad, not bad. It also never hurts to make more water. My clothes were wet, so I left them to dry at the fire. And good night. The fourth day was not as exciting as the other ones, because I spent it all just reading the same book. I'm not kidding, I then went to sleep. Fifth day started with a porridge. Delicious.
Thank goodness. Made it through another night.
In the morning, I headed back to Milton once again. I stopped by a random house to get some cloth, so I could repair my ski jacket. It was not looking good. But my main destination was going to be the radio tower. I went there because I wanted to continue my newly found hobby, making a map, and it was the perfect spot for scouting out the area. Then I once again visited the scrap house and continued my map. And you know what? Fuck it. I like this lamp. I wanted to fully explore the area around the farmhouse, but a wolf was in the way. So I did what was necessary. To my surprise, there was a climbing area and a beautiful view. It was very cold, but I had the time, so I decided to collect some meat and hide from this fallen deer. After returning, I was working on another project of mine, redecorating the whole house again. It wasn't anything crazy, just making it a little cozier, you know? This is the lamp I've taken, and don't worry, I didn't forget to drop my stuff. And after all that hard work, I decided to go to sleep. In the morning I cooked some porridge, and I became a little more skilled in it. While making breakfast, I packed some of my food, and after breakfast, I said goodbye to my favorite kitchen. Yes, I moved all the furniture, and the second day I'm leaving, but I felt like exploring. Climbing down the first rope was not a challenge thanks to my new crampons, and even the second climb was without a problem. Before entering Milton Basin, I went on this little rock to look around, and I found an abandoned camp. I crawled to another lookout point, and once I returned back to the path, I noticed someone had followed me. I better pick up my pace. I also found a fire striker in a nearby cave, and I think I found the owner of the camp. I borrowed his hatchet to chop some more meat from another carcass. And I was out of there, out of Mountain Town, and I made my way to Forlorn Muskeg. I immediately stopped by another campsite because I was freezing. I made some food, and it was nice. I picked up some birch bark. You never know when it can save your life. I found another cave, so why not? This one wasn't so dark. Ah, look at that. Another waterfall. And another radio tower. Or shortwave tower. I'm not sure.
I think I can use
The gear was actually pretty decent here. And I'm sorry to this man, but I took his hat. You could see the whole region from this place. Very open. From up there I saw some train carts and I wanted to check them out. And I made it, and I was not alone.
Have to drop some gear.
Well, this is better than I expected. I harvested my scarf so I could repair my new hat. First of many.
This'll come in handy.
I remembered I had the rabbit from earlier, so I harvested him. And then I went to sleep, in shorter intervals, just so I don't accidentally freeze to death. And indeed, in the morning I had to start a fire. I at least cooked the meat. And while I was up so early, I could experience this beautiful sunrise. I quickly found out that the ice in this region is not strong at all. And that was a lesson that I would not learn. You'll see. I eventually found some settlement. In a broken down shack, I found a new sweater.
Use this.
The wolves were on me immediately. I had to start blasting. I made it to the barn, and I was hoping I would be safe here. And the loot was plentiful. I've got my ammunition
That'll
back.
come in handy.
a new parka, better crafting
Could
tools,
end up being useful.
and holy shit, I found gauntlets. The best gloves I could ask for. I forgot to mention these new work boots. And yes,
What have we here?
I was very excited about another copy of Wilderness Kitchen. As I usually do, I repaired my newly found gear. Then I spent the whole evening just reading. Holy shit! Well, great. Well, hello, buddy. Yeah, it definitely felt safe sleeping here. I don't know what it is with the wolves here, but they were relentless. When I was trying to leave, they were just everywhere. But I showed dominance and that worked. Behind the homestead, I found another hatch. I fully expected it to be empty, but no.
Could
This
end up
one
being useful.
was stacked. We got storm lantern and more matches and tools and all sorts of stuff, including a bow with arrows. Without even thinking, I started grabbing everything. I also found some
Is
rations,
it food or...
and oh boy, we were just getting started. For example, I found this beautifully engraved hunter's revolver,
Just what I need.
just laying in a bucket. And also this very warm sweater, but also too heavy. And a book about archery. Perfect. I feel like I also have to mention
I
a
can use
shitload
this.
of crafting materials, which, spoiler, I didn't end up taking, but I at least marked the leftover goods with my spray. Everything was perfect. I had gear, food, nothing can go wrong. Right? Well, lesson definitely learned.
Too cold to think. Can't feel my feet.
All of my clothes are now wet and I have hypothermia, which would drain my energy. Then I slowly and shamefully walked back to the train carts. I had to drop everything that was slowing me down, including the new gun. And then it was drink time. I was lucky that I had so much coal. Well, at least for now. Then I went for a short sleep next to the fire. When I woke up, my clothes were already dry, so at least that. And I think this is my first aurora. The sky was lit up and it was mesmerizing. Even the lights and the radio tower on the hill, all lit up. Magical. Well, the next morning was not so magical. I had to leave. I couldn't stay because I didn't get any sleep and it was too cold to stay there. I was hoping I would find an inside shelter, or something like that. By following the rail tracks, I figured out I would have to eventually get somewhere, and I got to Mystery Lake. The wind started picking up and I realized I'm slowly dying. I saw a mark on a tree and that could potentially mean a moose, so I took a little look around and indeed, it was a moose, right where I needed to go. I could not risk an encounter, because if he attacked me I would be dead. So I bolted into the forest and luckily there was a broken down shack, which maybe saved my life. Fire, tea, and a little nap. That was all it took to get me a second wind. I then continued my walk through the forest. I was hoping it would be uninterrupted, but of course not. One wolf bite would be game over, so I had to be careful. After a few minutes, I finally found a house. Yes! The door was unlocked, so I just stepped right in. And this was cozy. I found another note. Damn. I was so tired I didn't even loot, I just went to sleep. Woke up late at night, and my hypothermia was finally gone. I was still pretty tired though. Next day I was finally free to move outside. I didn't really have anything better to do, so I went rabbit hunting. I'm sorry, mister. Honestly, I didn't really need to do it, but I feel like practice never hurts. And I also sharpened my tools. I finally had time to check out that archery book. See, I had a lot of food, so I didn't really need to go hunting. But it felt productive. Good night. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe the beginning of this day.
That guy who drank his own pee doesn't seem so crazy right now. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna die.
I've got food poisoning now, and I have to treat it or I die. Great, isn't it? I had the tea that I could cure it with, but I had plenty of antibiotics, so I just took these. Now there wasn't much to do. I was so sick I couldn't even read, so I at least made some teas that would for sure help. Since I really had nothing better to do, I just started redecorating again. This time I was actually quite pleased with myself. It was looking cozy in here. And I needed to rest, so I went to bed. I woke up in the evening and my food poisoning was thankfully healed. I had a little bit of daylight left, so I started reading. Then I realized I don't really need daylight, because I could read with my lantern on. There was plenty of fuel in there, so I could afford it. Deep into the night, I sharpened my tools again. And that was the last thing I did, and then I went to sleep. I woke up and left very early in the morning. It was still dark outside. I passed by Max's last stand, and by sunrise I made it to the camp office. No moose in sight. It was another pretty cabin. Of course I found another heartwarming note. And also my favorite military coat. I moved some furniture again. Then I chopped up these random wheels. There was a page from a newsletter on the counter, talking about new two-way radios. Pretty cool. I realized I have everything I need to make some pancakes, so why not? I gathered my books and made this corner my reading corner. And I immediately tried it out. I became better at fire starting and also archery. I was pretty drained after all that, so I went to sleep. The morning of day 13. I was deciding whether I should take the military coat or not, and I just could not resist the trip. I felt like a badass, and I went to check out the lake trail. I must have made a wrong turn though, because I ended up somewhere completely different. There was something in there, and when I got close I realized there was a person. So that was a grim start of the day. That's nature, man. While the wolf was busy, I made it to the lake cabins. They were really cozy. Not much stuff inside though. Then a devious plan had formed in my mind. Well, in my head it had gone a lot better, but I guess this works. I was actually running out of food, so I kinda needed it. I made it back safe with all the loot and made some delicious venison stew. And I also brought a little souvenir. And once again, sleeping time. The next morning, my friend Moose was back. I was too scared to go back, so I decided to check out the environment. He was probably looking for these, maybe. I'm not really sure. I also thought about hunting, but this deer was just too majestic, you know. He was still right there. Only thing that came to mind was scaring it off with a rock. From a safe distance, of course. I was surprised, but it worked. My next stop were fishing huts on the lake. Someone left a fishing guide in here.
What have we
Thank
here?
you. I broke the ice with my axe. And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that I made this fishing tip up last night. I didn't know if I would even catch anything, but my best bet was to just wait and see. And yes, I was right, I just had to wait. It somehow worked and I caught my first fish. After sharpening some more, the tip was up again. I got my hopes up, but the line snapped. Luckily I can use it again. I've had an assistant. Great. Third time's the charm, because I caught this big boy. After I caught that beast, I went back. I went upstairs because there's a bigger stove and started cooking. And another aurora came. The lights were on, and the downstairs computer was on as well. I found a document talking about deliberate introduction of predatory species. So that's why there are so many wolves. I've been also making more pancakes, became more skilled in cooking, and listened to music. Even outside it was quite beautiful. Day 15 was one of those days. I sat down in my reading corner and started reading. That's what I did the whole day. Most noticeably, I became better at fishing. Then I munched on my pancakes and went to sleep. I've really enjoyed my stay at the camp office, but it felt like I should keep exploring. On a nearby hill I found a dead deer with some arrows in it, and I didn't realize the ptarmigans were chill like that. I thought about it, but I couldn't hurt him. This view, on the other hand, was irresistible. I immediately scratched it onto my map. And the expedition continues. I found a river, probably coming to the lake, and I was ambushed. But I kept calm, and the wolf didn't even suffer. I saw a bridge and went to check it out. Must have been a logging area. I passed by some trailers, and in an unlocked car I found a message about a cave leading back to Milton. Might be useful later. I definitely needed to check out this complex. I even decided to mark this spot. This place was called Carter Hydro Dam, and as I said, I just had to check it out. Inside it was just what I expected. Machines, working equipment, pretty standard stuff you would see in a hydro dam, I guess. Another fire striker though.
That'll come in handy.
That was quite cool. And sadly, another fallen survivor. This place, especially these hallways, were a bit creepy. This huge room with a barrel would be my bedroom for tonight. I dropped my materials to cure, started the fire and cooked some meat with water. Then I took a look at the massive room. It was quite cool. I found a chair and I brought it next to the barrel, so I could sit down and relax. And since I needed to take some stuff off me, I decided to make another base right here. Put down my sleeping bag and sleepy time. Next day I was on the move again. I found another unfortunate soul. And I found the exit. I should have read the sign, because when I came out, the weather was not great, to say the least, and I couldn't go back. This door was just a one-way exit. I'm sure I could have found my way back somehow, but I decided to press on. Which wasn't the greatest idea, I might say. The wolves were probably hidden, but my temperature began decreasing rapidly, and it was just in a couple of minutes.
Can't feel my feet.
I started to panic a little, but luckily, last minute, I found a cave, so everything's good for now. This must have been a really awful way to go. Is that another copy of Wilderness Kitchen? I then made a camp of my own, rested for a bit, warmed up, and I was on the move. I made it to Pleasant Valley, which turned out not to be so pleasant, so I went back in the cave, read for a while, and then it was much better. I followed something that resembled a road, and you can already guess who did I run into. Another one of my wolfy friends. He made a wise decision though. Once he saw the bow, he bolted out of there. Only to return a few seconds later, and that was his last mistake. I also met his brother. In the end, he settled for a rabbit instead of me, but I was not gonna let it go. He was much more elusive, but I got him eventually. And since there was another radio tower with a shack nearby, why not check it out? The view was great, however the visibility wasn't. I went inside the control hut, and apart from all the equipment, they had a little room where I could live. And I was just thinking, what would it be to work there? I mean, it looks cozy and nice, but I don't know if the isolation wouldn't get to you. Anyway, next morning I found a mariner's peacoat on the bed. It has a great protection against wetness, but it was just too heavy, so I left it behind. And after breakfast, I was on my way again, because I decided I would like to see some mountains. I found a road, but I decided not to follow it, and I went into the forest. I admit I got a little lost, well, at least until I found an old barn with spare revolver ammunition. Nice. Then I made the wise decision to actually stick to the road. And it turned out great, because I found 3 Strikes farmstead. It seemed like a place where I could stay the night. It turned out I'm not the first one here. The guy who was first, well, it did not end up well for him. Also, I checked how safe this place is against wolves and, well, I don't know. So I decided to take care of it with my own 2 hands. I was now feeling really confident with the bow.
Plant fuel could be useful.
I almost missed these insulated boots, perfect for traversing the snow. And yes, collected some meat as well. And then cooked it. But that was not my dinner, because I treated myself with a tomato soup. Then I went to sleep by the fire. However, an aurora has awoken me. It was beautiful, but also extremely cold. I tried to get more sleep, but it was just way too cold in the morning. So I warmed up by the barrel, made some coffee, and left very early in the morning. The wind was cold, the wolves, as usual, and one of my arrows is broken. The sunrise, though, was gorgeous. On my travels, I've encountered a completely broken down building, a fallen tree. It felt adventurous. And I feel I should mention Burn Ridge Cave, where I found a Polaroid, taken probably at the Signal Hill. It was a beautiful photo, so I kept it. I was not ready for what came next, though. I saw a wing from a plane, and at first I didn't realize, but this must be the plane that got me to this island. It didn't look like many people survived. Near our pilot, I found another flare gun. That was the only thing I ended up taking. It felt weird to be there, so I quickly fled. I was so distressed I almost ran into a bear. Yeah. I've been lucky again because he hasn't spotted me yet, and I was able to successfully sneak around him. He must have definitely smelled me though, so I wasted no time and got out of there. After a while I made it to a ruined cabin, probably an old climbing area. I know this is silly, but I was over encumbered. I had to leave the flare gun again. After downing a coffee, I went straight to rope climbing. Made it with no problem at all. Well, goodbye Pleasant Valley. The climb actually really exhausted me. From Pleasant Valley, I made it to Timberwolf Mountain. I passed by our plane's landing gear. The crash must have been tragic. After a nice hike through the nature, I found something truly astonishing. The mountaineer's hut. A beautiful cabin right next to the lake. Can't get more perfect than that. Inside was someone's journal. Made me wonder what happened to them. And then I found another message mentioning someone not from here. And I couldn't believe it. But another wilderness kitchen. Thanks to the very conveniently placed workbench, I made more tip-ups and realized the roof is broken, but I'm now repairing that, man. The rest of the afternoon I spent reading and became better. Then I went to sleep a bit early and woke up in the middle of the night. The northern lights shining through the roof. It was beautiful. What was not so much beautiful was the next morning's weather. Luckily, there was enough firewood to keep me warm until the storm has calmed down. And truly, after a few hours, the weather was survivable. And I went to check this place out. The weather got better, but wolves have came out of their hiding spots. And I've met another moose right there in the distance, so I'll be not going there. I climbed a hill and the view was actually quite nice. It was called Echo Peak, and also it's home to some ptarmigans. After taking a little look, I noticed a cave that might be leading somewhere. Right there. I made it all the way down to Echo Ravine and decided to go the darker path. And truly, a cave that would lead into a whole new region. So yeah, that's Ash Canyon. What an introduction, huh? When I entered, I've been greeted by a valley full of burnt trees. And I was actually quite angry, because there was another moose in my way. Maybe it's the same one just following me around. I was really tired and I did not have time to deal with this. Found another completely broken down building, and while wondering who left his peanut butter here, I heard a howl. And these weren't regular wolves, these were timber wolves. Bigger, deadlier, and always hunting in packs. They would rip me apart. In a rare moment of actually thinking, I remember that they are scared of fire. Thanks to the accelerant and the random birch bark I collected a long time ago, I managed to actually start it in time.
Pretty well.
Well, that was close. The wolves were leaving and I had to fight back. I quickly realized that using a bow is not the most efficient way, so I grabbed the gun and started blasting. And I got the accelerant back. Now looking back, I feel a little bad for shooting all these wolves, but this was a life or death scenario. After one of them fell down, the rest quickly expanded. And I had a brief window where I could escape. The mountains look beautiful here. But at last, my savior, the lone cabin, the angler's den. Inside was messy, but actually quite cozy and perfect. I even found a pry bar. There even were some supplies left behind. Time to sleep though. In the morning I found yet another diary page. This one was about miners digging too deep. I finally got to drop all of my stuff and nicely organize it. And then I crafted another fishing tip-up. I wanted to see if I could survive mainly by fishing. First step, I made some holes, then set up the tip-ups and my fishing operation was ready. In the meantime, I tried to stay busy, And my first catch was nothing. I began exploring the surroundings and found probably a lost hiker. When I came back, the fish were ready. This was much better indeed. Look at this big boy.
This pack is getting kind of heavy.
Overall, I was very satisfied with the fishing strategy. Then I went to check out the waterfall and saw this random barrel. It turned out you can actually go behind the waterfall. It was a beautiful walk. I continued up the stream until I reached these long waterfalls. Really a magnificent sight. Nearby was a cave, so why not go check it out? Even this cave had a waterfall of its own. I actually remembered to take off all of my clothes, but I was not expecting that it would turn off my lantern, and I panicked a little bit.
I'm freezing.
The water was ice cold, but I put on my clothes, and when I was exiting the cave, I was already warm again. Yeah, this is the place where I entered the cave. I was much higher than I initially expected. And whoever made these bridges, props to you. I wasn't feeling really safe, and then this happened. I saw the waterfalls again, but this time I was above them. And when I was mapping, by complete accident I found out that there's a cougar territory nearby. So that's what the whole cutscene was about. I kept walking on the trail, but then I heard crows and I decided to check out what's so interesting there. I was not expecting to see a corpse there, and definitely not expected to see a beautiful
Just
weapon.
what I need.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'll be taking this. I'm sure this is just purely decorative piece, but if it can shoot, I'll use it. The only downside was it was heavily slowing me down. I was pretty tired, so when I found a cave, I broke camp and got ready for a sleepover in a cave. Did I mention I really like the word cave? When I woke up the next day, I finished Wilderness Kitchen and left it in the cave for someone to find. Almost right outside the cave, I found an abandoned mine, but no way to get there. I followed the trail and found a rope and shamelessly stole it. Just so I could deploy it and get to the mine, of course. I had a strangely melancholic feeling when entering. This place must have been abandoned for quite some time now. Well, of course I went in. There was a tiny camp right at the beginning. Deeper in the mines, I found another body. And another camp with a barrel, bed, and these snow pants. And actual crampons, not like the ones I made out of scrap metal. But the most valuable find would be a rucksack. This would help a lot, and especially since I'm carrying that rifle now. Then I found someone's notebook page and I realized this backpack probably belonged to someone. I made some tea and went to sleep. Waking up deep in the mines was an unusual feeling. I finished another one of my copies of Wilderness Kitchen and left it there. And then it hit me. What if there was someone like me, just traveling around having multiple copies of Wilderness Kitchen and just leaving them for people to find? But that's just me thinking to myself. On my way back I realized I missed this stash.
What have we here?
Right down there, the little house That's Angler's Den. I was hiking for about half a day and I was already pretty exhausted and also cold. Then I had more strength to continue along the trail. Everything was okay until I saw bones in one of the caves. I immediately found whose home is that. Yup, it was a bear. I found his footprints in the snow. That made me nervous, so I followed them for a little bit and I found him. Since I now know where the bear is, it can't hurt to check out these houses. This place was an old mining camp and I found some woodworking tools. I would eventually return for them, don't worry. Outside one of the cabins, I found a note. It was a memento hint. And guess where? Right at the Angler's Den. Inside, I found another note. Once again about miners wanting to go deeper. Maybe they dug so deep they have awoken something and it burned all the trees down there. Anyway, I found these combat pants. I would definitely take these. The bear was busy checking out my footprints now, so I had the time to sneak out. My home for the night would be this beautiful house called Foreman's Retreat, and it was sitting right at the edge of the hill. Once again, the view must have been beautiful, but the visibility... This place too was quite messy, but yeah, I could live here. I picked up some extra tools that I didn't really need, so I dropped them here. And I had to check out my new drip as always. It was a long day. Early in the morning, I went on a walk. This place was so cool, I really wanted to explore more of it. Right behind Foreman's Retreat was another one of these bridges. There's a lot of camps around in these parts, and this one even had a snow shelter. This trail was slowly leading me down to the burned forest again. I've discovered Fire Overlook, and the only way was down. The climb was extremely long, but survivable. It was definitely worth it. I found Homesteader's Respite, another cozy cabin overlooking the burned valley. It was also full of supplies, so that didn't hurt. And a lot of stuff for a revolver. Okay, this gets 10 out of 10 coziness points. I even found a shortcut leading down. Why not take advantage of it? Anyway, it was a perfect time to start heading back home. But at the middle of the climb, I realized I don't have enough energy to make it up there. So just to be safe, I decided to rest on this little ledge. I thought I'm gonna just get a quick nap to get some energy, because the only thing that can hurt me now is a snowstorm. Wait, what is that sound? Freezing to death, but this random snow shelter maybe saved my life. I hid inside, and it didn't take long until the storm has calmed down. Here, I could easily take a little nap and regain some energy. While making a sketch in my map, I realized that almost all of my clothes are wet and frozen. I should really hurry back. It didn't take long and I made it. Left all my clothes to dry, and there was nothing else to do than sleep. The last day, all of my clothes were dry except my gauntlets, so I left them behind and went outside to check the property. And ooh, we got a bear right there. I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought that I would hunt it with a bow. I waited until he got closer and yeah, I got humbled real fast. I immediately legged it. I ran for my life. I panicked and I don't know why I switched to a revolver. And then I hid behind a rock, hoping the bear wouldn't get me there. It worked. He lost me and then I cowardly waited and shot him. I mean, I did feel bad after this. I'm not gonna let it go to waste. When I returned for more meat, I spotted a moose back there. At this point, I really think it's the same one just following me. I went to see what all the fuss is about. I think I underestimated how cold it actually is, because now I have a frostbite in my hand. Well, nothing I can do with it now, except hit this shot. Right now. This is a bit embarrassing. Gotta do it the old-fashioned way. I definitely hit it, but it was not over yet. I hit it again, and damn, I'm so sorry. So I aimed for the third time, and my gun jammed. You can't make this up, man. I fixed it, took aim, and I'm sorry, Mr. Moose. This time, it was fatal. I marked a spot, just in case I don't lose it. I returned back to the cabin to warm up. Let's not go out without these. And then it's been a while since I've been repairing my clothes, so let's do it. Potatoes stay warm for a long time. After I warmed up, I returned back to the moose for his hide, and while looking in his eyes, I felt a little regret. With the hide and meat, I returned to Foreman's retreat and started cooking. And that was all for this day, and it was time to sleep. Hey, if you're still here, then thank you so much for finishing the whole video. It means a lot to me. This was initially meant to be 50 days, but this video is almost 1 hour long and it took me 1 year to finish it. I've been struggling mainly with the voiceover. I hope it's not too cringy. There is already much more that has happened, and if you would like to see more, you know what to do, and I will make part 2. Thank you once again, and hopefully see us soon.